Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we take your sources, articles, research, critical analysis, and transform them into instant expertise.
Today, we're taking a scalpel to a book that I think it's fair to say was a cultural behemoth.
Oh, absolutely. Gillian Flynn's Gone Girl. And if you think this is just a straightforward story about a missing wife and, a shady husband,
You are in for a surprise.
yeah, you're about to find out how deep this thing really cuts into modern psychology, into gender, into media. It's all in there.
It is. And our mission for you today is a really fascinating one. Our sources, which, they range from academic literary critiques to media ethics and even Jungian psychology.
Right.
They don't just look at the plot. They treat the novel as this vital cultural medium. We're going to get beneath all the twists and turns.
So we're synthesizing the literary mechanics, the media critique, and this archetypal psychology to really understand why Nick and Amy Dunn just exploded in the public imagination.
That's the goal.
Okay, so to start this deep dive, there's really only one place we can begin. We have to talk about the one piece of writing that just fundamentally changed how we talk about modern relationships.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
The hook. The cool girl monologue. It's the lens for everything that follows.
It has to be the starting point. The sheer self-awareness in that moment it's just shocking. Amy is telling us flat out that the perfect woman is a performance.
A script.
A completely manufactured script, designed to appeal to men. And she just demolishes the entire facade with that one unforgettable line.
You are not dating a woman. You are dating a woman who has watched too many movies written by socially awkward men who'd like to believe that this kind of woman exists and might kiss them.
It's just devastating.
It is, and our sources argue that this cool girl idea, it's the key that unlocks the novel's true subject, which is, what? This underrepresented female villainy, rage, and the systemic pressure that creates it. Flynn essentially gave a voice to the idea that female anger and revenge are just as valid and, frankly, just as terrifying as their male counterparts.
Exactly. She forces us to move past this simple binary, of women as only victims or saints.
Right.
And instead, she makes us look straight into the darkness of these deeply complicated people.
Okay, so let's unpack that darkness. I think we should start with the architecture of the book itself. How did Flynn build a structure that keeps this level of anxiety going for, over 400 pages?
It all starts with the voice.
Yeah.
The narrative style is first person, but it alternates.
Between Nick and Amy.
Right, Nick Dunn and Amy Elliott Dunn. And by giving us both of their diaries, their recollections, Flynn immediately creates this sense of unreliability.
And mistrust.
Complete mistrust. As the reader, you're constantly asking yourself, who's lying to me right now? Who is actually the more dangerous one here?
And the writing style itself helps create that mood, doesn't it? The sources pointed out her use of, really short, punchy sentences.
And short paragraphs. An active voice that just drives the action forward. It feels relentless.
It does. It's absolutely engineered for speed and anxiety.
And what's interesting is that while the delivery feels so modern, the story is built on a very classic foundation. The novel is split into 3 parts that are almost like a dark fairy tale.
Part 1, boy loses girl.
Part 2, boy meets girl.
And Part 3, the twisted one, boy gets girl back, or vice versa.
Exactly.
I think that framework's useful, but maybe a little too broad. Let's dig into the 7-point story structure that our sources used. It shows just how efficiently Flynn escalates the stakes.
Okay, yeah. So the first 2 points are the foundation. The hook immediately signals this profound instability. It starts on their 5th anniversary with Nick's silent internal thoughts.
What are you thinking? How are you feeling? Who are you? What have we done to each other? What will we do?
It's so unsettling. And then that leads right into plot turn 1, which is just Amy vanishes.
The catalyst sets everything in motion.
But here's where the structure becomes, like you said, psychological torture. We hit pinch point 1.
This is when Nick follows Amy's cryptic treasure hunt clues.
Right, and he finds the shed.
The shed full of all those expensive things bought on credit cards in his name.
Yeah.
This is the moment, for me, where the whole mystery just flips.
It's no longer about a lost wife.
No. It's about a wife who is intentionally and brilliantly framing her husband for murder.
That discovery shifts the entire narrative from a potential tragedy to straight-up true crime, and that pushes us to the midpoint.
Which is a huge turning point.
A crucial one. It's where Nick stops being this passive punching bag for the media and the police. He realizes he has to fight back.
He has to fight fire with fire.
He does. He actively decides to manipulate the public story. He uses the very same media that's crucifying him to plead for Amy's return, hoping he can lure her out of hiding.
It's such a great moment because it's when they both realize the real power is in the performance.
Yes. Then, plot turn 2, this is the absolute peak of Amy's villainy.
She murders Desi Collins.
Brutally. And she stages the scene perfectly to look like she was raped and abused, making her story believable. She comes home covered in blood, claiming Desi kidnapped her.
So Nick is finally off the hook for murder.
But he's more trapped than ever.
Which brings us to that chilling resolution. The pregnancy.
The ultimate anchor. It forces Nick to submit completely. He has to agree to all her terms.
Destroy his manuscript, the tell-all book, admit he bought all that stuff on the credit cards.
And stay with her. Forever. To protect their child.
And Nick's final thought, calling Amy his forever antagonist, we are one long, frightening climax.
It just perfectly captures this horrifying, never-ending dynamic Flynn created.
It's a prison.
So we've broken down the thriller mechanics. Now let's shift to the novel's core social critique, which is where this deep dive, I think, really begins.
Yes.
The key takeaway from the sources here seems to be how Gone Girl critiques the way rigid patriarchal ideology forces these socially defined gender roles on people. It's the engine of the whole conflict. Society's expectations are laid out so clearly. Men are supposed to be strong, independent, the decision makers.
And women are weak, obedient, focused on the home.
Exactly. And the tragedy of Nick and Amy is that they were both trying to perform these roles, and their real, messy, complicated selves just couldn't sustain it.
Okay, so let's bring in the Jungian framework here, specifically the concept of the persona. For a listener who might not be familiar, how should they think about the persona?
Just think of it as a social mask. It's the public face we show the world, the collection of behaviors we adopt to fit into a certain role in society.
It's necessary, but...
It's necessary, but when it's too rigid, it can suffocate the real person underneath.
And Amy, the master manipulator, is juggling multiple personas. First, there's the very intentional cool girl she built just to catch Nick.
But even before that, she was burdened with the fictional amazing Amy.
Right, the character from her parents' books.
The walking ideal, her child psychologist parents literally created for financial gain. It's an impossible standard.
That second persona, amazing Amy, feels so crucial. It wasn't a mask she chose, it was forced on her.
For profit. It put this immense psychological pressure on the real Amy to conform. She spent her entire life fighting a fictional version of herself.
And Nick isn't off the hook in this masquerade either. What was his persona?
Nick tried so hard to maintain the good guy persona, the refined image, the man who is supposed to be the breadwinner, the head of the family.
But underneath all that?
Underneath, he's a guy struggling with immaturity, with infidelity, and with this deep, repressed anger that comes from his own upbringing.
Which brings us right to the agents of socialization that the critiques highlight. The novel is very clear that these gender roles aren't natural, they're taught.
Absolutely. Just look at Nick's background. His father was an open misogynist.
A really nasty one.
And his mother reinforced those traditional domestic roles. She wouldn't let Nick do any housework because that was beneath him as a man, but his sister, Go, was encouraged to do it all.
So that taught him a classic and really toxic binary.
Yeah.
Women manage the home, men manage the world.
Right. And for Amy, as you said, the Amazing Amy book series was the agent. That constant exposure to a perfect, flawless, fictional version of herself, it fundamentally shaped her expectations.
And her rage.
And her rage when reality didn't live up to that ideal.
All this context really explains Flynn's stated intention for writing the book.
Yeah.
She was very explicit about wanting to challenge the idea that women are only, good and kind-hearted.
It's such a crucial distinction. She's not just writing a mystery.
No, it's a critique of expectations.
It is. She was tired of the traditional narrative constraints placed on female characters. Her goal was to write about female violence, female aggression.
She said, I wanted to write about the violence of women.
She did. And in Amy Dunn, she created one of modern literature's most complex and truly terrifying psychopaths.
Okay, so now we move into the really clinical analysis. If the social critique explains why the rage exists, The Jungian analysis explains how that rage just destroys the persona and transforms the people inside.
And the sources are clear that from a psychological standpoint, these traditional male and female stereotypes are just cultural overgeneralizations. They don't have a real scientific basis.
Right. That's the starting point.
So when those rigid personas fail, the darker parts of the psyche emerge. And that's where we meet the shadow archetype.
So for the listener, the shadow it's the negative side of our unconscious mind.
That's a good way to put it. It's everything we repress, everything we deny, or consider to be not me. It's the dark mirror of the persona.
So when the persona's cracked, the shadow comes out? For Nick, we see his shadow as what, debauchery, avoidance.
I think so.
Huh.
His years of cheating on Amy with Andy, his laziness, and that ultimate internal admission, you are not a good man. That's him finally grappling with the parts of himself he tried to hide behind the good guy mask.
But Amy's shadow is something else entirely.
Oh, it's exponentially more dangerous. Her shadow is pure, destructive, psychopathic behavior.
The need to control.
A deep, consuming desire to control, to manipulate, and to orchestrate suffering. The whole elaborate frame-up, it isn't just about revenge, it's about having ultimate, godlike control over Nick's life. That is her shadow in its purest form.
And society, represented by the media, it just reinforces these shadows by falling back on easy tropes.
Well, the sources talk a lot about the evil husband effect.
Right. Why was the media so quick to assume Nick was guilty?
Because the media is an agent of stereotyping itself. True crime narratives have really cemented the trope that when a beautiful woman disappears,
The husband did it.
the husband is automatically the culprit. The media trial against Nick was based on narrative convenience, not on facts. It was just easier for the public to swallow the familiar story of an abusive husband.
Easier than grappling with the reality of a genius female psychopath.
Exactly. Society needs those tidy stereotypes to function. But the novel just demolishes that convenience through the transformation of the characters, which we can analyze using the idea of the anima and animus.
This feels like the centerpiece of this psychological critique.
I think it is. So the anima and animus are the unconscious opposite-sex characteristics that we all have.
The anima being the feminine principle within a man.
Right, associated with nurturing, emotion, patience. And the animus is the masculine principle within a woman, aggression, power, logic.
And in the end, we see a complete role reversal powered by these forces. So how does Amy's transformation show the animus taking over?
Her entire return. The brutal murder of Desi, her ability to perfectly calculate the media frenzy, her cold, manipulative domination of Nick, that is the animus principle, and complete control.
She's expressing all these aggressive, power-playing characteristics that are traditionally seen as masculine.
She's no longer the genteel woman society expected. She is the dominant predator.
Meanwhile, Nick is forced into this state of compromise and patience, and eventually nurturing, all because of the baby. It's a fascinating inversion.
It is. Because he can't escape, he has to radically adapt. He accepts staying with Amy, and he transforms to a man exhibiting those traditionally feminine characteristics.
The anima principle.
Exactly. He becomes the patient and caring spouse, focused on nurturing and protecting his unborn child. He's prioritizing the domestic sphere over independence or power. He goes from expected patriarch to submissive caregiver.
So what does this all mean in the end? By that terrifying final page, the stereotypes have been completely shattered. Amy is the dominant, powerful force, and Nick is the compromising, controlled one.
They defy their traditional roles, but in doing so, they've created a relationship that's defined by, well, antagonism, not love.
It's the ultimate deconstruction of the gender binary inside the institution of marriage.
The psychological analysis shows that a person's character can't be confined by these rigid boundaries. Those forces, the anima and animus, they can and will assert themselves under enough pressure.
That, I think, is the most profound lesson from this deep dive. The novel skillfully shows how these societal gender binaries can be challenged and reconstructed, sometimes in the most horrific ways.
And the final takeaway for you, the learner, is this. The book forces you to critically analyze media narratives and your own preconceived notions.
That's a powerful skill.
It's a deeply transferable skill. That ability to look past the surface persona, the masked people present, and to understand the complex psychological forces at work underneath. That's useful everywhere.
Look for the shadow. Look for the anima and the animus.
Yeah, that's the key.
And before we go, here's a final provocative thought, and this comes directly from the analysis in our sources.
Okay.
We talked about how the Amazing Amy book series symbolized this imaginary perfect girl stereotype. And that series, which was Amy's lifelong burden, it began to decline and disintegrate precisely when she married Nick.
Right. Which raises a huge question. Does the novel ultimately suggest that conventional marriage itself, the whole structure of societal expectation, is the very thing that destroys that perfect female ideal for women?
That the only way to escape the ideal is to destroy the relationship that demands it.
Something to think about.
Something to mull over as you navigate your own relationships and the expectations placed on them. Until next time, we encourage you to consider what other cultural archetypes might be serving as restrictive personas in your own life.